will present some information about what is the textile and clothing sector now in Portugal, and in particular, the movement of this sector in Portugal towards more sustainability. Yeah. Let me present some data, some figures about the evolution of the sector in Portugal. Yeah, Portugal is one of the EU members. So as you know, in the last years, it was very, very difficult to maintain textile, mainly clothing sector industry in Europe. Why? Because the competition with other parts of the world is very strong, but in certain way, my country found a pathway to be competitive in this global world. So this is the movement of a number of employees and number of companies. We reduced it a lot from the 2000 year, but the evolution in the last years, mainly from 2009 till now, the evolution in terms of exports, turnover, and value added as well, is very interesting. You can see only COVID affected the movement, but last concluded year, 2021, we reached a new record of export. So this is the evolution of the value added, and this evolution is related to 2 points, 2 topics. First one, more digital activity, more physical productivity, but at the same time, Portugal is more and more oriented to more value-added products, namely luxury. Maybe you know that in the last years, some or several trademarks related to luxury moved the production to Portugal. I want to connect this presentation with the last panel. Yeah, sustainability is, of course, a question of mindset, to move our minds. But yeah, we can solve with small startups, local startups, but at the end of the day, we need clothes. And the future needs as well the transformation of industry. Portugal is a really industrial country in terms of textiles and clothing. The difference between production and turnover is very, very narrow. So mainly we are industrial country. Some figures, okay, we have this figure is graphically wrong, 132,000 employees in the sector, and in 2001 the exports were of 5.4 billion euros. Okay, this is the evolution, and it means that's possible to be competitive with a pathway oriented to sustainability. Why this was possible in Portugal? Yeah, Portugal is a very special country because we have an ecosystem very small. We are a small country. We have no more than 10 million people, inhabitants in Portugal. But the conditions to grow this sector were very, very particular. First of all, in the last years, the evolution of the qualification of people is amazing, as you can see. These graphics are related just for working force. When we compare 1998 with 2021, the difference is very, very expressive. At the same time, the investment on research and development and the number of researchers in Portugal exploded in the last years. This is why in 2020, Portugal reached the level of strong innovator in the ranking of the European Union. Maybe you don't imagine before, because our image is faraway country, small country, oriented to low technology activities. But this was a very nice achievement of my country in 2020. So the sector is eclectic. So this like a lab now, because you have all processes, all kinds of products produced in a very small part of the country. In the north of Portugal, we have almost 90% of the total industry. If you are in CITEVE, the Technological Center for Textile and Clothing Industry, in a region of 50 kilometers, you can have about 90% of the industry. This is very interesting, like in past in Italy with the Distretti Industriali. We have a strong partnership between companies. You can buy t-shirts, a confectioner that subcontracts someone that colors or produces the fabric, or you can buy t-shirts to a fabric producer that subcontracts the confectioner. So this is very important for us. We are eclectic, very concentrated and integrated. Maybe you don't know, but the north of Portugal is the biggest employer in textile sector in Europe as a region, not as a country, but as a region. And this is the evolution in the last years. Of course, we started in the 90s with the big problem of quality, because our sector in the 90s were not so good in terms of quality. And this challenge, we faced this challenge and several challenges. For instance, the integration of China in WTO imposes to Portugal a development of a new skill, quick response. Now we have lots of companies in Portugal with a lead time of 2 weeks. 2 weeks is narrow in all the sectors, mainly in textile and clothing. And in the last years, all the topics related to sustainability became the more important for the evolution there. So, in this region, maybe we are the only region in the world with an integrated system for water treatment from the 90s. It's very important in terms of holistic approach to sustainability of products, waste management as well. You have a good mindset. People in Portugal knows what is perfection in clothing manufacture. Why? Because the culture in this region is always related somehow with textiles and clothing. Very important. 2/3 of the total electricity used in Portugal comes from renewables, basically water and wind. And yeah, as I mentioned before, the scientific and technological sector in Portugal has a strong activity related to textiles and clothing. We have 2 universities oriented to textiles and training centers, and we have CITEVE. CITEVE is the Technological Center for Clothing and Textile Sector, and is, let me say, the geodesic center of innovation in Portugal related to this sector. You can see our premises. And the evolution of the center started with test labs to improve quality. But now, all the research, or the main part of research, is related to bio and circular. Okay, as well, laboratories and certification bodies. You have here some figures about the institute and the activities we have. One of these activities is to promote the Portuguese excellence. This is what I'm doing now. This is what we are doing in UNIT, exposing, exhibiting good examples of sustainable products produced in Portugal. Main fields of research. You can see eco-design and eco-engineering, design for circularity and performance, and sustainable materials for performance. These are the main topics nowadays there. We have another center oriented to nanotechnology and smart materials. 20 years ago, maybe nanotechnology for textile was crazy. Some guys said to me, Braz, you are crazy. But nowadays it's one of the more relevant institutes working with textiles, not only with textiles, but working with textiles using nanotechnologies. You can see, for instance, the competence in multi-component fibers, the biggest competence in Europe now, and cellulose-based fibers, among other activities. But especially because we believe on that. We believe that that's possible to have textile and clothing in Europe. Somehow Europe now knows the bad effects of globalization. Globalization is transport. Globalization is no capacity to control the way the products are made. We resisted to the idea that textile is not possible in Europe. And let's to the practice. Theoretical approach is very interesting, but we must transform ideas and knowledge in products. Yeah. Nowadays, the Portuguese production is really flexible, and we have a good capacity to respond quickly. This is of course, true for all kinds of products, but also for the more sustainable. Why? Because we bet on digitalization from the year 2000, when the threat coming from Asia went to Portugal. And we look for more differentiation. It is not possible to maintain traditional activities in Europe, of course. We must choose and bet in more differentiation. More difficult, more complex, knowledge-based, different, pioneer, and so on. So this is the strategy for portfolio transition, and of course luxury at this moment is very, very important, but this is very important as well. Maybe in the near future, sustainability is the biggest grief. Some colleagues before said exactly that. Sustainable is luxury. We bet on that. Yeah, but at the same time, yeah, we know the textile and clothing sector is considered the second more polluting sector. We took these principles, we analyzed these principles, we analyzed the movement inside Europe. Green Deal is a very important policy for the future. And we bet on that. The future, we cannot compete with countries putting on the European market bad products, competing with European companies that must respect the rules in Europe. So the so-called digital product passport will be in the near future a very, very important tool to collect all the information, all the relevant information about products, allowing to final consumers to compare how many liters per a garment, liters of water, of course, the quantity of chemicals, energy, and so on, transportation, and so on. This is the real revolution in Europe. Let's to impose to the others the respect of the same rules we impose to the European companies. Yeah, of course we have a pilot for that. A passport nowadays will be digital, of course, and maybe using the same technologies the banks are using for digital money. Yeah, and at the end of the day, textile must be sustainable, inclusive, respecting the social responsibilities, but at the end of the day must be nice. This principle in Europe nowadays, the new Bauhaus, the new European Bauhaus, is as well exactly what we think about this sector. We must be sustainable, inclusive, and nice. Let's go. For this reason, it's time for a quantum jump. We cannot reach more aims without a revolution. To improve has limits. So we must think about sustainability in a different way. So this is the global strategy for the textile and clothing sector in Portugal, and I enlarge these boxes: energetic transition, decarbonization, of course, and bio and circular transition as the more important. Of course, all the boxes are important. More sustainable products. Yeah, now in Portugal, we have a large assumption of sustainability of a huge opportunity. Not a question of compliance, but a business opportunity. And the biggest investments in research and development in my country now are related to sustainability, of course, oriented to textile and clothing sector. Let's to forget the notion of compliance. We must change really our minds, industry, of course, consumers as well, but industry, to look to the sustainability as a business, as an opportunity, the only pathway from follower to trendsetter. And I can say that in a very narrow areas, Portugal became trendsetter. And this is very important for me and for my sector. So this is the holistic approach to sustainability, and I will underline bioeconomy, recycling, and closed-loop water. Of course, less chemicals, less energy, less water. Okay, this is the global strategy, and you can see materials, recycling processes, traceability is very important, digital product passport. We must have this information, certified information. No more greenwashing, please. No more greenwashing. Maybe you don't know. If you go to a shop, it seems that all the garment is organic. Do you know what is the percentage of cotton produced in the world that is organic? 5%? 1%. So we are liars. Industry and retailers are lying to the consumers. A small part of the cotton is possible to be organic. I was in Brazil two months ago, and the president of the Association of Cotton Producers said to me, organic cotton in Brazil is impossible because we have a special bug. So we must kill this bug. Organic is impossible in Brazil. Brazil is a big producer of cotton. Okay. Communication. Good information, good support for this communication, and to reach all the people, to all the stakeholders, of course, also final consumers, in order to have a responsible consumption. And finally, closed-loop water. This is really an object for the near future, is to have processes, wet processes, with the same water ever, more or less, close to. I'm concluding. co-design and co-engineering. Co-design and co-engineering. We must, and we are prepared for that, develop concepts, develop designs, jointly the producers and the retailers, or maybe the consumers and designers and all the stakeholders. Bio and circular, for sure, the future, and from fossil to bio fibers. Yeah, it's not possible to maintain the level of production of thermoplastic fibers. We must stop the production of fibers from petrol. What are the alternatives? So cotton is stabilized. No more production of cotton. The only way is to produce from other kind of resources, and namely cellulose-based fibers from wood. Lansing was mentioned before, and other companies operating on there. At this moment, to respond to the market, 3 plants are in construction in Portugal. One for continuous filament, another one for staple fibers, and the third one for composites, nonwovens, and packaging. Why? Because to collect fibers in the other part of the world and transport them to Portugal, and then to send fabrics to Morocco to be transformed, and then to come again to Europe or United States is not sustainable. So the idea is to have raw materials produced as close as possible to the consumption. One plant for protein-based fibers, namely to use waste from cheese production to produce fibers. Why not? This is a waste. Something like silk is possible to be produced with this material, this waste. Let's go. We'll reach that. And new industrial plants for local natural fibers production. What we have? We have hemp, we have banana, we have pineapple. Let's to transform exactly what we have. And as you know, it is possible to make wonders with these natural fibers. Less chemicals and fossil-based to zero. We need dye stuff. 2 ways to obtain that. From petrol, normally, it's normal nowadays, but also from natural materials like mushrooms or tea or waste from agro-food sector. We have the first patent to obtain color with the bio processes using mushrooms. The patent is Portuguese, and yeah, some companies are making good business with that. Circularity. Biodegradation is not circular. At the end of the day, it's circular. Okay, we will transform a garment in something in the soil to produce raisins. But the idea is not that. It's to close the loop and to use garment to produce new garment, to use wasted fibers to produce new fibers. Nowadays, the techniques are mainly oriented to mechanical recycling. Mechanical recycling is not circular. Forget it. Because mechanical recycling degrades the fibers, so it's not circular. Maybe with the biochemical recycling, maybe is possible. Some experiments in Portugal, in Austria, in Finland and Sweden. Let's to use, for instance, cotton garment to produce lyocell. The situation is that existing offer mechanical recycling for all kinds of fibers, thermal recycling for thermoplastic fibers, and specialized spinning. We closed in the past all the spinning mills. in Portugal. We sold the spinning mills to other countries, but now the sector is reinvesting in spinning mills. Why? Because the exigence of recycling is very, very exigent. So the exigence is exigent. Oh, nice English. Yes, this is the offer now, but new investments in waste sorting and dismantling, a big problem. Imagine a coat with cellulosic fibers mixed with protein fibers, with petrol-based fibers. We have to separate, we have to dismantle buttons, zippers, and so on. So it's not possible to make and craft. We must have developed advanced systems to dismantle automatically. And biochem recycling, of course. I'm concluding now, less water, as I mentioned before. Yeah, strong reduction in water using during last decade. That's a mistake there. Yeah, some companies reduced 70% water consumption in the same processes or the same objectives. I'm talking about dyeing houses. This is a very nice achievement, but what we want for the future is a closed-loop water. Let's see. And finally, I think this is the last one, to mention that my country decided to put some million euros for research. And in total, there are 60 main agendas for the future. CITEVE and Centro is involved in 19. So textiles, fibers are related to 19 of the 60 total agendas. This is the importance my country is giving to this sector. And you have here some of these 90 agendas. The first one, BIT, bioeconomy at textile. This is, in total, companies will invest 138 million euros to create new plants for obtaining materials or obtaining chemicals from waste, or the investment in new plants for cellulose-based fibers production. This is why, let's be a little bit commercial now. Please come to Portugal, because if you are looking for more sustainable products, more sustainable raw materials, and if you are looking at a country with companies with your mindset, your simple mindset, I mean clear business, easy business, respect for delays, respect for all the rules, please come to Portugal. And please call me. Maybe we can join for a cup of wine, and we have a very nice offer of good wines and food in Portugal. Please come. Be welcome.